And we're here today, guys, and we're going to see the capital punishment of 2 highway robbers who killed this innocent man's wife. And here they are going to be getting their limbs cut off and hanged. Now, other thugs, other highway robbers are going to be looking and thinking, that was bloody gruesome.
So that's not true. Do you know why?
If you're too dumb not to see that, right? If
you
want to
Let's
worship
be
people like, if you want to
Let's be
worship
respectful.
if you want to worship people like Taylor Swift, Madonna,
I don't.
Exactly.
I don't.
Right?
I despise that whole culture.
People.
I'm
Have you seen
very,
Madonna? She looks like the movie.
I'm very
Saw.
anti-capitalist.
Do you know the
Have you seen the movie Saw? She
hijab? Do
looks
you know
like
the
that.
hijab was born in this country
Yes.
in the 1910s,
Thank you.
1930s.
وما أنفقتم من شيء فهو يخلفه وهو خير الرازقين.
We want to establish an amazing masjid for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the country of Norway. Click on the link and donate now for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Quickly recount what I said earlier. So for me, capital punishment is wrong because if it turns out the person was innocent, then you've claimed an innocent life. And they might have been a murderer, but if they weren't, then you've actually killed someone. There's no way to bring them back. And I would say, even if I was a Muslim, whether I was Muslim or Christian or atheist, that's too much of a risk, surely. Like, you wouldn't want to take that risk with someone's life. I want to hear what you say about that.
Okay, interesting. So Shaykh Uthaymeen has a book in this when it comes to Islamic jurisprudence. He's somebody who's on Hanbali school for. He's somebody who I follow. He has a book on Islamic jurisprudence. So in that book, it makes it very categorically clear that when it comes to Islam and the capital punishment, people think the capital punishment is like, I'm walking down the road in a Sharia abiding state, and then I see one guy and he is stealing, and I go, oh, I'm going to go and chop his hand off. It doesn't work like that. We have legal procedures, we have witness statements, we have a whole procedure to go through. It's not as simple as, oh, this person done A, let's go and kill him. It doesn't work like that. We don't believe in vigilantism, which will go and hunt, bounty hunters. It doesn't work like that. And the people who try to do that will be punished. Why? Because you went and killed a soul because you was under the assumption that he killed somebody. We didn't go through the due process. So now you are going to get the capital punishment for killing someone that's innocent because we didn't establish that. Now, Islam is a beautiful religion. Why? Because it deals with reality. We don't deal with Disneyland. We don't live with like, we're going to come here and I'm going to walk down the road where there's a group of thugs and I'm going to say they shouldn't rob me. No, they will rob you.
Well, it's a system of law. It's not just a religion.
Thank you. So it's a system of law. So what Islam does is Islam says we have worldly problems, we need worldly solutions from the divine. So, number 1, there are 5 capital punishments, there might be more, on specific things. Islam has come to protect these 5 things. Your wealth, your lineage, your mind, your religion, and your... another one I can't remember. So, now, the first one is your wealth. There is a capital punishment on somebody that steals a specific amount. The capital punishment is that their hand will be cut off.
You said that. Do you think that's justified?
That's perfectly justified. I'll explain why.
Would that be a law you'd want to introduce in the United Kingdom?
I believe if this law was applied, England would be much a safe place to walk and people will prosper. I'll come to why. Number 2, it came to protect your mind. Okay, it came to protect your and also, like, for example, your religion. That's why there's a capital punishment on those who apostate. Treason. There is come to protect your lineage.
So would you want a punishment in the United Kingdom for Muslims who convert to...
No, it doesn't work like that. So if there'll be a capital punishment, there'll be a due process. So it's not about me wanting, it's about that I believe this is the best solution for the Western world. Then there's a capital punishment for adultery. So Islam has come to protect your lineage so that your kids are your kids. Yeah? So there's a capital punishment adultery for both men and women.
So again, this is a law that you want to see introduced in the United Kingdom.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So I believe it's the best thing to happen, and I'll tell you why. Because now we can talk about, oh, that sounds cruel, but let's talk about why.
To me, it does sound cruel. It sounds very.
You know why? Because the thing is,
it sounds authoritarian. It sounds very tyrannical.
Yeah, you know why? Because
that doesn't mean I support theft and adultery and all those things. I just think this kind of punishment. I've been to Saudi Arabia. Yes, Saudi Arabia is a very safe country, but that's also a very brutalized culture to do that to people.
Saudi Arabia is a fine example of.
It's a much safer country than Britain is.
It is. But what I will say is this: there is a saying, mercy to the oppressor is oppression to the innocent. To have mercy on the oppressor is to have oppression on the innocent. So the logic behind is this: I'm not going to have mercy on a outright maniac who's going to come and cause rape, kill, theft, cause disorder on the land. That's why in Surah Ma'idah in the Qur'an, chapter 5, it talks about highway robbers, and it says if you catch them, you should cut off their limbs from either side. Left arm, right leg. Right arm, left leg. And then you should crucify them. Now, sounds very harsh.
Sounds medieval.
Barbaric, medieval, no problem. This is the reason why. This is the reason why Islam believes in this. We would rather give a capital punishment in the most severe way on a group of thugs where you are going on your business to a trip with your wife and kids, and they stop you in gunpoint and shoot your wife in the head, steal your money and run away. Islam says we will deal with these individuals in such a severe way that there's actually a verse in the Qur'an when it talks about warfare. It says strike them in such a way that the ones behind them see and run off. The point is what? Islam is here to save life, to preserve life. Your way of doing it, the liberal way of doing it is, they stole,
So
don't do it again.
why is it the case?
You're going to have PS5 in prison, you might have lunch. Islam says no. Let me just finish this point,
Sure,
yeah?
yeah.
Forgive me for giving
Sure,
a
no,
lecture.
I'm listening.
I just want you to understand, because I don't want to do injustice to it.
it's
So
okay.
Islam says, the one who stopped you when you was going peacefully to your way on a trip, shoot your wife in the head in front of your kids, these people deserve the severest capital punishment in public. So imagine Speaker's Corner, and we're here today, guys, and we're going to see the capital punishment of 2 highway robbers who killed this innocent man's wife. And here they are going to be getting their limbs cut off and hanged. Now, other thugs, other highway robbers are going to be looking and thinking, that was bloody gruesome.
So that's not true. Do you know why? And
Tell
I'll
me
explain why.
But this is Islam. by the way.
During, so I think you know the history of Speaker's Corner.
Yes, it's basically
So Speaker's Corner used,
Tyburn Corner where
they used to have
heretics.
they used to have a gallows.
Yes.
It was 3 pieces of wood in a triangle raised up on a scaffold, and they could hang, I think, 3 or 4 people on each. Folks gathering around. I think they only stopped doing this a couple hundred years ago. It's not that long ago, and yet crime was far worse then than it is now. Far worse. It wasn't that capital. Yeah,
Okay.
crime in England. London was a far more dangerous place in the 1750s to the 1850s than it is in 2014, 24. It was far more dangerous. Or I think of the example of the United States, more dangerous country, more violent crime, more thefts, higher incidence of rape. And yet they have a far more capital punishment focused system. Not all the states, but many of them.
That's a very good point.
So for me, I think we've got to be careful. Now, on the other hand, it's true that China and Saudi Arabia, they have capital punishment and they are safer.
And I tell you,
So I'm admitting that it's not like a clear-cut issue.
I'm going to tell you.
But we have to be very careful and say, well, look, if someone attacked my wife, killed my wife, of course, I'd be absolutely, there's no emotion to describe.
Would you want them forgiven?
There will be no way to describe the emotion. However, I do believe, as someone, this might be because of my Christian upbringing, even though I'm not a Christian now, I do think forgiveness is the appropriate solution. That doesn't mean you let them have freedom.
That's interesting because Allah says in the
Because
Quran,
forgiveness is for yourself. Forgiveness is about letting go of the anger. If you have someone who carries around anger in your heart, you're going to have a higher rate of heart attack, all kinds of stress, illness. So to forgive the person who did that crime is a way of not saying it's okay to commit the crime. It's a way of saying for you, you're at peace, like you can move on. And I know, I think in Islam there's a rule, there's a space for that. There's a space for that. So it's not necessarily either or. Just that we have to be careful. Like the example I gave, in the UK, an innocent man was put to death by the state after due process, for a crime he didn't commit. Now, how many people in Saudi Arabia or in the United States or in China have been put to death under Islamic law, under Christian-inspired laws, under communist-inspired laws, right? They've been put to death wrongly and there's no way to come back from that. And I just think you're maybe overlooking the risk involved there.
okay, so let's break it down a bit because there's a few points that you mentioned. In Islam, Allah says in the Quran that there's qisas. For example, a murder, an eye for an eye. So we believe in that, an eye for an eye, yeah? However, Allah says that there's also blood money that can be paid, that can be set at the discretion of the family, so they can ask for blood money. And number 3, Allah does say that it is better if you forgive. So Allah is saying it's better if you forgive.
He was a peacemaker. I
Yeah,
respect
it
that,
is better if you forgive. That's at the discretion of the family. Not going to a court and then this person who committed this massacre or whatever, then all of a sudden, the judges that give this the ruling, they do such an injustice by saying 5 years or 10 years, and then the family is distraught. The family is distraught. Why? Because it's injustice. The family's member's life has been taken. They should have the choice of eye for an eye, blood money, of forgiving them. So now, coming to, you made something very interesting, and I was thinking about this. In certain situations in America, there's a capital punishment. Electric chair, the injection, all that kind of stuff, and sometimes it doesn't work. Now, I wouldn't say it doesn't work, because Islam deals with the situation from a micro level to a macro level, which means the following. Islam says we get rid of all kind of evil around us, meaning the following. Now, again, for example, a woman being sexually objectified. There was a study done in American university where they showed a group of men, half-naked girls, a woman in bikini. The part of the brain that lit up for tool use lit up, meaning he saw the woman as an inanimate object. Why? Because pornography, the hypersexualization that we live in, the beauty industry, and I don't have an idea. I was driving on the A406 and I saw a steel company, you know, steel, metal, steel. And there was an inappropriate woman dressed next to it. And I'm thinking, what the flipping hell has a steel got to do with that woman? I was like, what is the correlation? Is this woman made of steel?
Sex sells. It sells products.
Now, the point is the following. What Islam does, it says, we are not going to sexually objectify women anywhere. Nobody. So we're saying Islam is going to make sure that there is zero reasons for you to even think of doing evil to any woman. Zero. You can't come and say, oh, you know, but no. And by the way, just a disclaimer, nowhere does Islam say that because a man cannot control himself, the woman needs to wear the hijab. This is not from our religion. Islam does not say you are an animal, that's why you just because you're an animal, the woman needs to cover up. This is not from Islam. Of course, there's a verse that says that there might be idiots that try to talk to you inappropriately. Look at how many women, I can bring any woman here and ask them, have you been catcalled? She'll say 100%. I've been catcalled today, maybe 50 times. We're saying Islam deals with it in such a way, it says women should not be sexually objectified. So therefore, now when you rid the illness from the society, when a man goes and tries to rape a woman, touch it inappropriately, talk to an inappropriate way, there is severe consequences. Why? Because for what perverted reason, have you decided to assault this woman? You have zero reasons. That's why the capital punishment is so severe. Why? Now, number two, when it comes to theft.
But you haven't addressed my point about what if there was due process, you have judges, you have the whole system.
We have that too.
And yet there's a mistake. I mean, humans are fallible.
We'll come to that.
And instead of having put them in prison and then being able to release them from prison after accepting there was a mistake, it's too late. You put the man to death.
Your worldview cannot. Your worldview cannot answer that. But my worldview can. Why? Now I'm going to come to that. Remind me the question. I'm going to come to that.
I think the problem is now you've avoided the question. With all due respect, you've avoided the question twice now, and I'd like you to face this problem head on.
I would say I haven't.
There is room within even Islamic countries with due process, with Islamic law, to make mistakes.
Yeah.
And if they accidentally put someone to death who's innocent, that's a major stain on the conscience of that country.
Okay. So what I'm saying is,
it's not an accident. It's a willful, negligible.
Yeah.
And I appreciate people who have had crimes done to them are furious and they're angry, and that's very understandable. Yeah. But if it turns out that actually you falsely accused someone, maybe it was a mistake, you accused the wrong person, and they've ended up dead, there's nothing to bring that person back. You've committed a major crime.
To your worldview. So what I'm saying is the reason why
I'm saying this, even if I was a Muslim, I'd have concerns over this.
No, you can't,
I'd be very concerned about accidentally putting to death another Muslim.
I will tell you why not. Now, just want to answer something. I'm not avoiding it. There's a question you asked. You said that there are countries that have capital punishment where the crime rate's high. So I had to answer that. So I'm answering that, telling you why when you apply capital punishment to a corrupt society, of course it won't be a solution. So that's not the model.
That's a fair example. That's a fair argument.
That is not the model Islam is bringing. Islam is saying we deal with the problem from the foundations. If you don't deal with the foundations, my friend, I can have an execution where it cuts the man slowly, slice by slice. There'll still be theft. Why? Because the society holistically is corrupt. Islam says we deal with the evils in society, then you apply the capital punishment. Because otherwise, if you, for example, when it comes to theft, just touch upon that and I'll go to your point. When it comes to theft, Islamically, if somebody holds money in his hand, if he has £1,000 in his hand and he's walking down the road, do you think the person who steals from him gets the capital punishment?
I'm not sure what the situation is.
Not really. You know why? Because now you are provoking. It's an act of provocation. Because why? Islam says a person who breaks into a house, goes to the safe, steals a specific amount, seen by a witness gets a capital punishment. Because what Islam says is, was he triggered? Was he poor? Is it the state's fault? Has the state
They
been
try and
looking
look at
after
the
it?
context. Yeah.
Of course, because it goes back to why? Because prevention is better than cure. Islam's model is exactly what you're saying. Now I'm saying, in that instance, let's go with now your answer. If they put to death a person who is innocent, now we're saying there is due process. For example, do you know what's the requirements for capital punishment in adultery in Islam?
No, I don't know.
Okay, so
That's
here's,
stoning to death, right?
no, we know what the how you execute it. It's how do you come to the conclusion of the guilty party? So there was an instance that happened at the time of Umar ibn Khattab, the second Caliph of Islam. Yeah. So I think it was the time of the second Caliph of Islam. Now, and actually just before that, I'll just add something. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, once was on his own. A woman came and said, "I have committed adultery and I want the capital punishment." This is from my narrations. It might sound a bit bizarre. So the Prophet moved away from her. She said, "O Messenger of Allah, I have committed capital punishment and I would like the capital punishment." The Prophet moved away from her. Now, why is the Prophet moving away from her? I'm trying to understand in this hadith. Why is he keep avoiding her? And there was another instance where a man came and said the same thing. And the Prophet said, "Maybe you just kissed her." Why is he adding that word to his mouth? The point is the following: Islam doesn't want capital punishment. Islam is not a bloodthirsty vampire like, "Oh, we cannot wait." Islam is here to preserve life. But the reason why the Prophet was doing that is to tell him, go and repent. For a woman to be accused of adultery, or a man, you need 4 witnesses. 4 witnesses who say we saw.
It's more witnesses for a woman than a man, right?
No, it's not. It's the same.
Is it not?
Yes,
Okay.
it's not. This is a big misconception. Yeah, the capital punishment is for a man and a woman. There's no gender discrimination. 4 witnesses have to say we saw the penis go inside the vagina. Like saw, not he was on top, she was on top. Did you see the penis? Look, if 4 people come and say she was on top of him,
They could all be liars.
no, they can't because
Of course
now,
they could.
now,
Are you telling me you cannot
now-
think of a single situation where 4 people can't lie?
Now it's a
Human beings are not perfect.
Now it's a mass conspiracy because number
Because
one,
witnesses, we all know from studying witnesses in many cases,
Yes.
you'll have a car crash happen on a street,
Yes.
and the police will go around and interview 10 different people,
Yeah.
and they'll get 10 different images of what happened.
Yeah.
And some of them will outright lie.
Yeah.
There's going to be situations like that. Now, I'm all for someone going to prison for rape. I'm all for that. But the idea of putting them to death, just because 4 witnesses have given an
100%.
account,
You're only saying that because
you're saying that in every single case, those
You're just
witnesses
your
are
mother, bruv. You would handle
100%
yourself.
not going to lie.
You're
You're saying that in every single case, witnesses have ever given a testimony they haven't lied. So you're potentially putting innocent people to death in the name of a holy book. And for me, I have to say it's barbaric when Christians do it. It's barbaric when any religion does it, even Islam. And I say that, I don't say that lightly or to be insulting.
No.
Because I have a lot of respect for many of the things in Islam and any other religion, but I think we have to be careful. This was a text coming out of the 7th century. The Prophet was trying to make peace among tribal cultures that had a very revenge-based system of thinking, right? It was among Arab tribes of people, and there was a lot of disorder, and he was trying to bring some harmony, right? Kind of like Genghis Khan, bringing together a lot of the different tribes in the steppe of Asia. I don't see how many thousand years later how applicable that is. We have to have a dynamic and flexible and aware approach as a way of change. We can't stay fossilized in a particular time and place, right? Even within Islam, you have a very clear emphasis on growth and on change and on trying to understand things from different perspectives. It's not like a rigid, they encourage debate and discussion, which is what you're all doing here now, right? I don't know, you've all grown up in backgrounds. You've got to try and think why you came to this perspective. Is it just because your parents told you? Is it just because you heard it in a book, or it's because someone told you repeatedly as a child? Or did you actually come up with it yourself because you weighed up the facts? That's why I just say to be careful. You might be advocating, and I don't think you're doing it on purpose, putting people to death.
I'm doing it on
And they
purpose.
may be innocent. They may be innocent.
You've
Because you're
added-
making an assumption that those witnesses will always be telling the truth, and they may not.
You've added that because the thing is, just to add on, because I didn't finish my point, was that.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to
No, it's
interrupt.
fine. Just the 4 witnesses, we're talking about just people. Okay, we're talking about people who are not known to be liars. Okay, what we're saying, and by the way, in the Sharia, if you look at statistics, even when it was given by the Ottoman Empire, only in Islam, maybe you will count with your hands how many times capital punishment was applied. Because you know why? It is such a rare occasion to find a man and a woman. If they're going to do it, they're going to do it in their house. So to find a man and a woman in public, having intimacy, and 4 people all of a sudden come and see. This actually happened at the time of Umar ibn Khattab. 3 companions, 4 of them, they came to him and said, we saw this man having intimacy with this woman. They came to Umar ibn Khattab. Umar ibn Khattab went to all of them and said, did you see it happen? He said, yes, we saw the pen go in the ink. We saw the pen go in the ink. We saw the pen go in the ink. They came to the fourth companion. Did you see that? Umar ibn Khattab said, did you see that? He said,
How do you know they weren't lying? How do you know?
I'll tell you why. Because they definitely saw it. Now,
How do you know?
I'll tell you why.
Were you there?
No, I wasn't there. So there's
Many of the hadiths were written as hearsay. They
No,
weren't
no,
written
no,
by
no,
eyewitnesses.
there wasn't. If you know anything about hadith literature, you're talking about the Bible, not the hadith.
There were sayings of Muhammad from, I heard him tell me that he said this, that he said this, that Muhammad
we have
said
a whole
it.
science behind it. I'll tell you later.
Oh.
So the fourth one said, I think I saw them. They all got lashed. All of them got lashed for slander. Why? Because again, Islam is not there to apply it, but rather use it as a tool. Because now in the Western world, you talk about barbarism. We're living in barbarism. We're living in barbarism.
There are many barbaric things about Western culture. I'm not very aware of.
Let me tell you,
I agree, but that doesn't mean we should adopt more barbarism to deal with that.
My friend,
Don't play whataboutism.
This is what you're calling barbarism. I'm telling you, this is a solution to your whole problem, which is what? Do you know how many kids are out there that they don't know their father? And they are committing incest with their own brother because they don't know they're in the same vicinity and their father was a player who slept with 20 women, impregnated most of them, and there are children marrying each other from incest.
You don't need Islam to fix that problem.
You need Islam.
You can fix that problem without Islam.
My friend, with all due respect,
You can fix that
you are
up.
thirsty for Islam. With all due respect. Uqsum billah, wallahi, the Western world is thirsty for the Sharia. Let me tell you why.
Can I ask you a quick question? If the majority of British people rejected the idea that you should create Islamic laws in the UK, would you still want to push it on to the Western public,
Look, I'm not
to the
going to
British
push
people?
anything to anybody. I'm telling you an idea that would be a solution for you. I'm not pushing
But would you
anyone.
want to use persuasion and
No,
like
persuasion is me
discussion?
talking. I'm talking.
Or do you want to enact it in
I'm-
Parliament without the
no,
consent
no,
of the public?
Even democratically, if 51% of the Muslims come and say we want Sharia, do you know what happened? There'll be a bloodbath because the Western world would fight us for it. And you know that.
In a way, quite rightly.
And you know that.
In a way,
Thank
quite rightly.
you.
And by the
This
way,
is
I'm not
key.
saying
Look,
the
no,
Western
no.
leaders are
What you
innocent
said-
angels.
What you said is very fundamental. You know why? You
Because
don't believe
imagine
in no
if
damn
imagine
democracy,
if
bro.
Christian
You don't believe in no
imagine if
democracy?
well, I don't believe Britain is a democracy.
One second. You don't even
I don't
believe
believe
in
Britain is
democracy because I said if 51% of the vote was for Muslims to have a Sharia law, there will be civil war. You know why? They do not want it in their country.
Because democracy
But when Muslims come and say we don't want your liberal views on our country, you come and shove it
democracy
down
is not
our
enough by
throats.
itself. You need human rights.
Human rights according to
If the majority of a community decide to go and pollute a river and destroy a river and then poison the river
which
downstream,
liberalism is doing, yes, and where Muslims are saying get out of the river.
that doesn't mean
Please get out of the river.
that doesn't mean that democracy is always correct. The majority opinion is not always correct.
Thank you. So
But-
look, I agree
but-
with you. I agree with you. You know what that means? We say this is. I just want consistency, which I appreciate. Which is what that if democratically Islamic MPs or whatever you call it for that matter, we voted and said we want the Sharia, they would never accept it. You know why? This is a big lie that we believe in democracy and freedom of speech. Brother, they are liars. They don't believe in freedom
Because
of speech.
Sharia law would
They
impinge on
believe-
human rights.
they believe no.
And democracy is not the only
My
value.
friend, the only one that's impeding human rights is the Western world. The Western world is slaughtering.
That's just not true.
It
I'm
is
sorry.
true. Let me tell you, you know why?
The Egyptian government is treating
Shall I tell you why?
treated people brutally.
Do you know what barbarism is to you? Let me tell you what barbarism is to you. Somebody coming here and hacking someone to death, you're like, that's barbaric. I'm like, hold on a second. Do you know there's 1 million people who have STDs in London? That's barbaric, man. Can you imagine 1 million people with STDs, sexually transmitted diseases that you're going to carry on to somebody else? That's barbarism.
I would encourage
How
everyone
many-
to fact check
how
that.
many-
I don't know how true that
You
is.
can check it. Look,
Check that.
no, maybe I'm being generous. Let's call it 250,000. Too many. One too many. Number two.
Two wrongs
Number
don't make
two.
a right.
Number two, 1 second.
Two wrongs don't
One,
make a
two.
right.
How many women are sexually harassed, sexually raped in the Western world? In the Western world, that is barbarism. How many people who are walking down the road? I can remember when I was young, bro. I got robbed 3-4 times. Man had a nice gold chain. I was Muslim then. I could wear gold chains. Yeah. I got robbed how many times? I know many people who have lost their lives. There's theft.
There's robbery and
there is
destruction in
absolute corruption.
Afghanistan
So
and in
1
Iraq
second.
too.
This is what I'm saying. You wish.
Even before we invaded
Look,
and
just because you
brutalized
have a
them.
problem, don't throw mud at us.
No, but there's crime all over the world, not just in the
No, my
West.
friend, no, my
To
friend.
act as if the West
No,
is the
my
only
friend.
place with
No,
crime
my
is
friend.
very
In
faulty.
Afghanistan, bro, the
No,
Taliban
there's
showing
not
the
more crime in the
AK-47.
West than there is in the Islamic world. Do you know why? Because they've got laws there. We don't have the same laws.
Thank you.
Do you know
Thank
why?
you.
Because we've been sexualised in the last 50 years.
Can I just?
The
I've
only
been to the
reason
Middle East.
gays and the trans people are coming out
Thank you.
was they never used to do that before, but we've been sexualised. Like, if you're too dumb not to see that, right?
see what?
If you want to
Let's not call him
worship
dumb.
people like
talk.
If you want to
Let's be
worship
respectful. Let's be
okay,
respectful.
if you want to worship people like Taylor Swift, Madonna,
I don't.
Exactly.
I don't.
Right?
I despise that whole
Degenerate
culture.
people.
Have you seen Madonna? She looks like the movie.
I'm
You know
very
the movie Saw?
anti-capitalist.
Do you know the
Have you seen the movie Saw? She
hijab? Do you
looks
know
like
the hijab was born in this country
Yes.
in the 1910s,
Thank
20s,
you.
30s?
Yes.
I'm aware of
And
that.
why was that?
Well, in many, as far as I understand,
Modesty.
Islam got
What
the
did
hijab
girls
from
have
the
now?
West
No
originally.
modesty. Do you know why? Me.
They did originally,
Look at
yeah.
my
Are you a
hair.
Muslim?
From my
Became
understanding of
one Muslim.
history,
I'm not
interested. Okay.
there's
Now-
nothing about the hijab in
now
the
let me
Quran.
tell you something.
It comes from
There is in the
comes
Quran.
from Portugal,
Come
comes
on.
from
No,
places
it's not.
outside of.
What do you think about
the Islamic
LGBT
world.
people,
One
right?
second, one second.
I'll answer what, listen to this one.
Look,
Listen to this one.
I'm
LGBT,
quite
right? You
skeptical
get one
about some of
village
it.
full of Muslims, 5,000 Muslims, and you get another village full of LGBT people. The Muslim village with 5 continue. The the lesbians aren't going to have any children. The gays aren't going to have any children. The trans, they've screwed their bodies up. The bisexuals don't know what they're doing. The asexuals don't even want to be there. They, you know what I
So
mean?
you think they should throw them in prison?
Martin.
No, I think their village will they'll have no children. So you have 5,000 LGBT.
It's even against
wait,
evolution.
listen, yeah. So what will happen? You know about
And
other
the
people.
fertility
And then
rate in
you're
Turkey is
gonna
going
be knocking on
down
the
as
door.
well, man.
Please, can we have all
Why? Because of the
developing
Western
children?
Western
Do you,
No,
do you understand
it's far more Islamic than we are.
No,
Yeah.
it's not. No.
Do you
It's the
understand the
Western
problem with
values that have been-
LGBT? They produce nothing.
I understand your
No
point. You made a great
no
point. No.
children.
You made a great
Nothing.
point. The reason is, look, what I'm
Fertility rate
saying
in
is,
China's
oh,
gone
yeah,
down.
but
as well.
one
happiness.
second. I'm saying barbarism. Do you want to tell you what barbarism is? By the way, if there's a book that I always recommend to all the females, yeah? Beauty Sick. The biggest barbarism is to reduce a woman to a mere sexual object that the only thing that she believes she has is her body. That is the biggest barbarism I've seen, that a woman has to
agree.
go,
I agree.
wake up and spend 2 hours to do makeup. She's afraid. And you know, there was a study done, by the way.
I agree.
When COVID was going on, you know, we had to wear the masks.
Yep.
Guess what? Women were wearing the mask even they were told that they don't have to anymore. And they asked him why. Because they said, I don't want to be judged based on my appearance. That is barbarism. That is the greatest form of barbarism. So Islam has come to say, as a woman, we have a woman here. There's one sister here.
There are
We
many
come and tell
solutions
her,
without religion
Let me tell you
to that
something.
problem.
This is what I'm saying. Look, you haven't even tested it. What I'm saying is this. As a woman, I come and say to the sister, you are more than a sexual object. You are a human being. You have so much to offer the bloody planet. Not, I'm going to go to Brazil, get butt implants and die in the process of the bloody martyr, which happened, by the way. Or some guy coming and saying, I feel like being a piano today. I'm a piano. I'm going to marry a tree. So the point is, when you have these issues, this is the reason why I say, you might call it barbarism, but I swear to God, one highway robber being executed in Speaker's Corner when everybody's watching, best believe
disgusting.
that. Let me tell you something. What's more disgusting is those innocent people being robbed by those highway robbers because they
Can I
get
make
a slap in the hand and play PlayStation 5 GTA in prison. Look, thank you very much.
No, we'll leave it there.
a pleasure.
There's probably a million things I wanted to ask you about. Thanks, guys, for listening. It's great
Thank you
speaking.
very much.
Thanks, man.
IslamNet is raising funds to establish a masjid and community center in Norway, and they urgently need your support. This donation will be a sadaqah jariyah for you, because every person that comes a step closer to Allah through your donation, you will inshallah be reaping the reward. Click the link and donate what you can.